Morning, this is Jake Bapps, the historian here at the Gene Lloyd Cooper Archives on the beautiful campus of Rio Grande and Rio Grande Community College. And today we're going to talk a little football. Rio Grande had football from 1914 until 1949 when it was discontinued. And we're back. As of last spring, the announcement was made that football will start, the first game will be played in 2025. Let's go on back and look at Rio Grande's history just briefly. Football started in 1914. The first year they played 2 games, one of which ended in a riot. The first 2 years they played only high school and local community teams. And it was 1916 before they played their first game against the college, and that was Marshall College, also known as Marshall University. And they got beat 26-12. Interesting thing about 1916, that was the first time a football game was played in conjunction with homecoming. And homecoming in 1916, believe it or not, was held on Thanksgiving Day. So that's the first time Rio Grande played football on Thanksgiving Day, and probably the first and only time that an alumni banquet was held, say, on Thanksgiving Day. Paul Line, probably the most famous name to come out of Rio Grande football, was coach here from 1923 to 1929, and then from 1933 to 1937. He was here, left, and came back. He came back a third time. Third time was not as a football coach. He came back as the president of the school in 1954 and served until 1962. And of course, the Line Center is named after Paul Line. I get asked a lot, where was the football field? The football field, if you're familiar with campus, would be behind where the library is now. Basically, it would run from Anniversary Hall down toward 4 and 7s. As a matter of fact, they had to be careful kicking points afters on one end of the field because sometimes balls would hit Anniversary Hall. The field was not in very good shape. They never had a scoreboard, never had a PA system, never had lights, never had bleachers. So that kind of tells you what. Many years, Rio would only play one home game, and that would be at homecoming. The rest of the time, they played in Jackson or Gallipolis. Football program was overall 62, 104, and 9. 62 wins, 104 losses, and 9 ties. That's not exact because sometimes early on they didn't even bother to keep scores or report scores. They had a winless streak from 1938 to 1942, sort of the downtime of Rio football. In 1940, they never scored. But even worse than that, in 1941, they got beat by Moorhead 104-0. 1944, season was canceled because of World War II and no males being available to play. Matter of fact, total enrollment was all the way down to 33, and there was talk of closing the school. Football was resurrected. They actually flew to a game in 1948. They flew to a game in Pennsylvania. But the last game was held. The last game they played, no one knew it was going to be the last game. It was Thanksgiving Day of 1949 in Detroit, where they were beaten by Wilberforce in the snow 44-0. Because of the financial situation of the school, the Board of Trustees voted to drop football in March of 1950, and it's just now been resurrected, and I personally am looking forward to the first game. As a next football coach, it kind of makes me feel good to see that we're getting back involved. One interesting side note to the end of football, when they dropped football in 1950, they finally sold the old equipment. And when they sold that old equipment, they used it to buy new basketball uniforms. One of which one they bought was, of course, the famous number 32 worn by Bevo Francis. That's a brief look at Rio Grande football's history. Till later, go Rio.